That joke isn't funny anymore. Available on Amazon and everywhere. Hey guys, welcome back to the Lou Perez podcast. I'm your host, Lou Perez, and today I am joined for the first time. First time, long time. So Brady Pesola and I have been following each other and communicating via text and messaging and DMs and all that for I think a few years now. And before we started recording, Brady pointed out that this is the first time we're actually talking to each other. So I'm very happy to be joined by you today, Brady.
Well, thanks for having me, Lou. I really appreciate you. It's really good to see this handsome, beautiful comedic face you have with the beautiful salt and pepper, man. Again, I am definitely envious.
I love the adjectives, handsome, beautiful, comedic face. So that somehow I make it work, you know.
I'm not sure comedic face. I was trying to allude to the fact that you're a comedian, but I don't know if comedic face was the appropriate term. But regardless, you're awesome.
Thanks, man, and likewise. And I think you and I, we connected, online, and we're following each other. And you could be a tough guy to stay connected with because there's been a number of times that your accounts have been like gone, and I'm like, where is Brady? What's going on? So right now. So your main account is what on Instagram? Is that where people?
Yeah, I basically just keep Instagram and the old book of faces, trying to keep it minimal down. I'm starting to lean towards doing YouTube, but we'll see. YouTube takes more work and more consistency, and just with my schedule these days, it's kind of hard to do that. You know, at least with Instagram, I can have a thought and post an image or a meme or a video and put a thought behind it. So yeah, but I also think sometimes I do get shadow banned, especially in the last few years. Just the way social media has been. Heck, I've gotten shadow banned because I posted a Marcus Aurelius quote that actually wasn't attributed to him, and then they just hit me on it. It was like, it's like, oh my goodness.
What was the quote?
It was along the lines of, and this was my fault because I didn't fact check this. It was along the lines of everything we see and hear is opinion, something along those lines. And I see people attribute to Marcus Aurelius quite a bit, and I had to look it up, and it's not attributed to him. It's falsely attributed. There was another thing that he had said, and I forgot what it was, that came close, and I think that's why people just assumed that's what he was saying, but it's a different attribution.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, that is weird to get shadow banned over something like that. It seems like a pretty benign quote, right?
Keep in mind, there are times when I do express certain aspects of the human condition, which we all suffer from, and so at times I deservedly get shadow banned for something like that.
Yeah. Well, it's it's sort of the give and take of social media in general is that you have these opportunities to put your stuff out there in front of millions and I guess potentially billions of people. But then at the same time, each platform has its own kind of community guidelines where one thing that works on, let's say like Instagram, if you were to put it on TikTok, it would be taken down. And I had to deal with that a number of times, like a number of, what I thought were just kind of, I wouldn't say lame jokes, but just, nothing special. It would be okay on Twitter, it would be okay on Facebook, it would get dinged on Instagram and then taken down completely on TikTok. So it's like navigating that ecosystem. The ecosystems can be a bitch.
Sure. And I think a lot of times what you still have to remember is that you're still dealing with the human variable and the algorithms. And a lot of these community guidelines are set in place, but the interpretation of the community guidelines obviously can be can be taken a certain way depending on the moderator who's there, and especially the people that might run that certain organization. Obviously, like X now has a different type of personality that runs it versus Meta, and even with Zuckerberg running Facebook, you still have a different person that runs Instagram who still reports to Zuckerberg, so they might have different personalities. And TikTok has a different type of standard, and so it is funny. Plus, along like the format of how content is, how they prioritize their content, right? Like Facebook was always about just sharing personal experiences. Instagram, like when it first came out, was just like, here's a cool picture and some filters and stuff like that. TikTok is a lot more about short form video. And then you got YouTube, which is long form video and stuff like that. So each one has their own different way of wanting to moderate. But again, it comes down to even the moderators that are hired and their biases determine whether, oh, this is funny, that's not funny, or this falls within the guideline, or that doesn't fall within the guideline. And each person within that even has their own idea of what should be there or not.
Yeah, and then there's the aspect too of like kind of pay to play. So my wife had was doing like an online business, Pilates and bar, and for her to get any reach whatsoever, she would have to shell out a good amount of money, and it was just like at some point when you have like a 20,000 followers and only a fraction of them even see your stuff, and it's like these are people who want to see your stuff. There's a reason why they're following you. That just becomes like a just like another headache. You don't seem to have that problem though. You get your stuff out there. You have a really nice following.
Let me be clear. I'm a jackass with an undeserved following. Every once in a while, I'll post something that gets a lot of attention, and then people follow it because they like the message that I have. But I haven't really developed a community quite as some people have. But it is funny with social media as far as trying to keep visibility, and what's the purpose of your visibility, and then what is the content. And sometimes I've had to remind myself that sometimes I'm not being shadow banned. Sometimes I'm just posting stuff that isn't interesting. And I've told people that when you're trying to develop a following, you need to be one or two of three things: entertaining, engaging, or informative. If you're one of those things, or at least two of those things, you're doing great. What's the reason why people want to follow you? And if they follow you, what's the reason why I keep coming back to you? Like, are you engaging with them? Are you informative? Like, oh, that's really interesting. And are you entertaining? And entertaining doesn't necessarily always have to be humor, but is it entertaining enough to hold your attention, especially between short form and long form video?
Yeah. And what's what's your kind of like day-to-day gig? What's your main focus now?
Sure. I do personal security. So I live just outside Los Angeles and high up in the mountains. And so, my main gig is just protecting other people and looking out for them, doing risk assessments, threat analysis, or just standing close to them so they feel safe and important.
That's I didn't know that about I didn't know that about you. How'd you get into that? How'd you fall into that career?
It's funny, I was a firearms instructor for a while in San Diego, and a guy came in, was an FBI guy, really sweet guy. I always helped him out, and he knew I was looking to get out of the firearms and retail industry, which was great. I loved it. I loved being a firearms instructor. I loved teaching people how to shoot, how to get that aha moment, and feeling empowered, and learning just about firearms in general. And then he came in and said, "Hey, I know you're looking to get out, and I know you're looking for a career and trying to figure out what you want to do when you grow up." And so being a Marine of 8 years and having gone to college 2 years for my associate's degree in administration of justice and stuff like that. And so he's like, there's a job came across my desk. They're looking for former Marines to drive around and kind of quasi protect these CEOs of a Fortune 500 company. So I said yes, and he kind of helped coach me through the interviews, because these are Fortune 500 companies, and so these are varsity level interviews, if that makes sense. You're talking to these high up people, these executives, and so he coached me through it. I went through and managed to get hired, despite my obvious intellectual limitations. And so they liked me. They liked my personality, my sense of humor. And so I did that for a couple of years, and that kind of started my path into executive protection. And I've been doing that since 2016, and I loved it. I really do enjoy that opportunity. We in the industry call it a privilege, because there are uniformed guards standing there and sitting in the hot sun and doing things, and then you're in a nice, Tahoe or SUV in plain clothes, and you get to go everywhere with the client. You get to eat at fancy restaurants with the client. You get to go travel places with the client. And so it's a privilege. It really is a privilege to do this, and you can't take it for granted. It's a lot of fun.
Wow, man. That's that sounds amazing. You basically sound like there's a TV series coming down the pike. The Pesola initiative or something like that.
Oh, absolutely not. Like I said, it's a lot of fun, but you really have to deal with, you have to be, your confidentiality, your ability to keep confidential of a lot of the things that the clients you've protected and things that they do, their day-to-day life. A TV show about being an executive protection agent or following the life of an executive protection agent, you're most undoubtedly watching some fake reality series, because you couldn't do it. Clients would be uncomfortable with you seeing their day-to-day life and how you operate and your skills according to the trade craft.
We'll do fiction. We'll make a fictional thing. Instead of like what's his name, Liam Neeson, and taking a man with particular skills, dude. I could play the lead. I'll be a man with no skills who just manages, kind of falls into it.
I don't know if I can have a guy better looking than me playing me. That would be.
We don't have to worry about that. I'll tell you that much. With so there's a few things I wanted to talk to you about, just right off of that. For one, being a firearms instructor, it's something recently. I live in New Jersey, and I've become a gun owner and licensed to carry, and I'm somebody, I didn't grow up around guns. Like my dad was a businessman, or he owned a butcher shop, so we had a shotgun and a revolver and stuff like that. But it's not like we, went shooting or anything. So even though I'm, like a libertarian, pro gun nut in, ideologically, I never had, the real hands-on experience. So, even to this day, I mean, guns still fucking freak me out. The fight, especially having carrying, I don't take it lightly. What I'm wondering is as far as the training and stuff, when did you get comfortable, just always always having a cannon on you,
Sure, fair enough. And I just want to say right off the bat is there's nothing wrong with having a lot of respect for the firearm, because the moment you stop respecting is the moments that mistakes happen and bad things happen. Once that round leaves the barrel, you can never take it back, and you have to be responsible for where that round goes. For me, I grew up in northern Minnesota, in the woods, always having a shotgun or a BB gun or a 22 that my old man had taught me how to use. And I've made my mistakes with BB guns and had my ass handed to me, shooting out a van window. That was a van that was pride and joy of my parents. It was this old Waldock van that was formerly owned by the Minnesota Twins doctor. And so my parents were so proud of that. And it was a really cool van. And they were up at at my dad's cousin's place hunting. And I was out there with my BB gun shooting at squirrels and stuff like that. And I think I had, I don't know what I did, but I was setting the gun down or something like that. And it was falling over, and I caught it. And I think I put my finger on the trigger. Oh. And it shot out the window of the Waldock van. It ended up being an $800 repair in 93.
Oh yeah,
$800 is a lot of money for my parents, who blue collar as it gets, you know. So I was in trouble. But you know, on that farm, I was always, you know, shooting at whatever I could, and targets and squirrels. And my old man would give me you know, I think if I remember, he'd give me like $1 for every red squirrel I shot, because red squirrels were really destructive. They crawl under the house, insulation stuff, and all that. And so you really learn, you know. I've used slingshots, you know, 22s, bows and arrows. I have a fun time when I was a kid. I was making a homemade no, I had a wrist rocket, and then I took a homemade arrow. And with an arrow is nice because it still goes along, and it's not short, right? You have control over it. Well, what my parents later described me was like a stake. And I decided to put it in my slingshot and all the way back, and it just went right into my hand. And we were hours from the hospital. And so I've had my fair share of fun with ballistics in different various formats. And then I joined the Marine Corps, and the Marine Corps turned out, growing up with guns, made me a pretty decent shot. And then you come to understand it. You see it as a tool. You just see it like you would a pack, or, you know, another piece of gear. It is a tool for your occupation. And so oftentimes the idea that it's a weapon, in the Marine Corps, they told you it's your weapon. And that is that. It's your weapon, not your gun. It's your weapon. I got out of the military. It's funny, as I was a life insurance agent for about a year, because I want to learn how to communicate and talk with people, and not cuss and swear and grunt as my form of communication when I want people to take me seriously and try and find a job outside the military. I did that for about a year, which worked, which was cool. It taught me a lot about interpersonal communication, sitting face to face with somebody else, handling rejection and someone who just doesn't want you to be there in their house. And then I got recalled back in the military, back to using firearms, and I got recalled to fulfill a law enforcement capacity, which was weird. I was a radio operator, is my trade in the Marine Corps. But at that point, you're now carrying a 9mm Beretta as your primary weapon. You're carrying that every day, and you just get used to sitting on your hip, and you just understand that is there if you need to defend yourself or like somebody else. Yeah. And then got out, went to college, and then started being a firearms instructor. And that's really where I learned so much more about firearms. It's funny, is you'll hear Marines say, I'm an expert shooter, rifle and pistol. It means that you're great at putting a round down range. But that's all that really means. There's so much more when it comes to learning about firearms and ballistics and operations, how they work, how they operate. There's so much more to break down. And then as far as, like, you know, in the Marine Corps, you qualify every year, and you shoot at a target, you're standing static, shooting at a static target. And if you shoot the center enough times, they say you're good and you're an expert. When it comes to teaching firearms, we had this 365-degree range, and it was really cool. And we had these movable big block targets. You could move around and create different scenarios. You could go from behind cover, move around cover, low light, no light shooting, just really dynamic movements. And that's when you really become familiar with firearms and how to utilize them, and how they become an extension of your body and your intent. Some people don't remember, is your intent is in that firearm. All your skills, abilities really comes there. And your firearm is also an extension of your emotions and your knowledge. And if you're people don't realize that they carry firearms. And I tell people who carry firearms all the time, and for their self-defense or their CCW, is that if you wake up in a bad mood and you are emotionally compromised, your logic is compromised, don't carry that firearm with you. Don't. Yeah. Because the problem is once you carry a firearm to protect yourself, you have the utmost moral, ethical, and legal responsibility and superiority to make sure that you never escalate a situation where it's going to cause conflict and you may have to defend yourself. That means if someone cuts you off in traffic, gives you a finger, or is an absolute asshole, you have to maintain your logic and calm. And so when it comes to teaching firearms, man, that was so much fun, and you learn so much. And people don't realize, if you're an instructor, your teacher, you learn a lot more than just a student. It's interesting. You learn a lot about students who handle a firearm, how they do things. And then when it comes to engaging, communicating, and trying to articulate the operations, usage, and tactical techniques of a firearm, it's interesting.
Yeah, I started. I took this this one course, and I had just gotten my daily carry, I guess you would call it, the one.
Yeah.
And so I wasn't as familiar with the tool as I would like to be. And one of the last things we did, the guy's like, okay, which is your shooting hand? And I showed him my right, and he's like, okay, grab this, and it was a toilet paper roll. And then he taped around it, and he's like, okay, you can't use this. You can't use your shooting hand. And I was like, oh God. So then I had to unload, pop out the magazine and then put it back in with my left hand with just one hand. And I'm like, okay, I think I'm dead. This just isn't happening. So it was I think it was a little too, maybe a little too advanced for me. I don't know the idea, but I'm just hoping. I never fuck up my hand, that I'm not able to actually use the gun.
I wish you lived out near me. We'd be shooting every day, and I'd teach you a whole bunch of fun, cool stuff. It's actually what he was doing was showing you what limitations that you may have, and then what you need to work on. Oftentimes, when we're challenged with something, we're like, I wasn't ready for that challenge. Like, nobody is. Why not understand where you are, what your limitations are, so you can know? It's like, I know what I'm good at. What am I not good at? And a lot of times people don't realize you are, they call weak hand, strong hand. And most people don't realize, it's like, I'm a lefty. If I go down as a lefty, I need to be able to just as effectively and efficiently operate with my right hand. And the advantage of being a lefty is I live in a right-handed world. So I'm more often adapting to a right hand environment, so I can use my right hand a lot better than most people can use their left hand as their offhand. And so it's always good to know, it's like, what do I need to work on? And so, use your left hand often. And there's the thing, like when you're at the range and your hand does go down, there's so many different ways. You can reach in to drop the magazine. You can put it behind your back leg, pull your other magazine out, jam it back in. And if you got good sights, you can rack it right off your belt. There's a lot of different ways you can do things. And of course, the one is why you never see me do gun videos, is the gun culture is atrocious when it comes to doing online videos. Some guy went to some training, and that's the word of God because he was super underwater ninja scuba sniper Jedi and did this and that. And he's like, well, this guy taught it this way, and that's the word of God. And you're like, when it comes to firearms, there's 1,000 ways to skin a cat. And the best way is the one that doesn't get you killed, and the way that doesn't hurt anybody else, and the way that gets your enemy killed, should you have that intent or find yourself in that situation.
Yeah. I think it's I find that it's better that I've gotten into this, I think, when I'm older, and while there's I guess years of skills that I could have been building up, but my head is on straight as an older guy, as as someone who's 43. Like,
right.
If I see trouble, I'm fucking out of there. I'm like, I don't know. There's a group of like young dudes here. I'm crossing the street. I'm just getting out of this situation, as opposed to, I don't know, if I had more piss and vinegar as a younger guy, go like, hey, whatever, man. I'm gonna walk around. I'm locked and loaded or whatever.
No, that's a great mentality to have, is just to keep yourself, especially when you're with your family. I can't tell you how many times I've been with my wife and my daughter that I've had to just bear and grit my pride and my ego and swallow it because some guy cut me off or said something or was trying to engage in road rage or was just being an asshole. And I'm like, the young Marine in me, the kid in me. When I grew up, when I was in school, I was bullied and picked on quite a bit. So, which is funny to turn out to be a protector now. But even that little guy in me sometimes is like, "You gonna take that? We used to take that all the time." And it's like, yes, we are going to take it, and we are going to move on. We're going to swallow his pride because I have a firearm on me with right now, and especially I have my wife and kid with me, and I cannot allow them to be put in a situation where they might be at risk. And I think a lot of guys tend to forget that. And I think what gets a lot of people in trouble is their pride and their ego. And I always tell other dudes, like, even if you aren't in the industry that I am as a protection, when you're with your family, you are the agent in charge of your own protection detail, and you need to treat your wife and your kid like they're your client. And that means in executive protection, when there's a situation, it's not about returning fire. It's about getting off the X. It's about getting your client to safety. There could be an active shooter scenario in a mall, and if you're with your client, your first and foremost job is to get that client the hell out of there or get them to safety and guard them. And as much as we dudes always think about the cool scenarios where we might, save the day, the reality is your job is to get your family the hell out of there, get them to safety first and secure them before you go play cool guy Rambo.
Yeah. I watched the video recently. Which kind of blew me away, and us talking about it now, I'm thinking about it. I think it takes place in a supermarket at, like, it looks like the self-checkout line. And there's two guys, older guys older than us. And the one dude, they're yipping and yapping at each other. I don't know who, started it first, but the one guy goes and, like, knocks the guy's hat and pushes him. And they're kind of like pushing back and forth. The one guy kind of moves away, pulls out a knife, and then the other guy, the guy who was put, at least, as far as the video went, started, like, pushing him and knocked him, whatever. He pulls out a gun. And what I'm thinking is, like, there are so many places where this just went all sorts of wrong. For one, like we've been talking, if you have a gun on you, you got to try to de-escalate and get the fuck out of there, as opposed to actually, becoming the aggressor. And then the dude who pulls a knife, like, if you're pulling a knife, I would imagine if you're carrying a knife and you're pulling a knife, you probably live in a part of town where people carry guns, like if you're pulling, so the idea that you're going to pull this and, knowing that there's a good chance that the guy who you're pulling it on is probably carrying, man, you guys are fucking up. And you're old men. They were easily, like, in their 50s, easily.
Anytime you have a weapon on you, whether it's a knife or a gun or something that is there for self-defense, you have to eliminate every variable that might come about where you might have to use that tool. I mean, you really do, because the moment you have to pull it out and use it, you're going to be under a lot of scrutiny, especially if you have a knife or a firearm. And if you use a knife as self-defense, that looks worse than you using a firearm for self-defense, stabbing somebody. There's a whole lot of other that's a whole other can of worms. But again, it comes down to that ego and that pride. If you have a firearm, you can't be out there, aggressing. Or let's talk about one thing. It's funny is people, if you do use a firearm and you've engaged in aggression, right, there is something called manslaughter that you can be charged with. And what does that mean? Well, let's start off with the idea. And I was teaching a class to a friend the other day. I had never used a firearm before, and they wanted to get some actual training. And the topic came up about murder, homicide, manslaughter, things like that. And so the first thing people need to understand is, like, when you hear in the news, like someone said there was a homicide. That's simply the act of a human being taking the life of another human being, the conditions of which determine whether it was justified or unjustified homicide. That's different from murder, and everyone uses the term murder as this ubiquitous, overarching, generalized term. And the idea of murder really is just with malice and a forethought. That means that you had the malicious intent and thought out a plan to kill somebody, unjustified. That would be called unjustified homicide. And then from there, unjustified homicide, they determine whether that was murder or manslaughter. Manslaughter is more just negligence. And so let's say you are out and about with your family, and there was some guy doing something like, I don't know, whatever. He was minding his own business and you didn't like it, either because you were inappropriately profiling. Let's talk about, I don't know if we're going to have to navigate this because it's been a long time, but we're going to have to walk on eggshells around this. Do you remember Zimmerman and Trayvon Martin?
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Middle of the night, young black kid's walking. He's got Skittles and iced tea, I guess. And Zimmerman was, and forgive me, like this has been a long time, so my memory is a little shady on this. And we'll get to the point here in a second. But you have Andrew Zimmerman, who's, if I remember correctly, was acting as his own neighborhood watching, and I believe he did call the police, and he's had a few beforehand. Again, this is vague memory right here, but he was told not to pursue, and he got out of the truck. Now, you see someone walking in the middle of the night, walking through an area. I think he was supposed to say the truck, but you got out to investigate and engage, and you engage with somebody, and they turned around and became hostile. Now, if someone engages me at 2 a.m., like, hey, who are you? Any one of us, someone comes out of the middle of the night and says, hey, who are you? Immediately, we're going to become defensive people. We're going to be like, yo, who are you? Why are you questioning me? I don't know you. Get away from me. There's going to be an escalation of tension. And it ended up escalating to the point where Trayvon Martin, if I remember, was on top of Zimmerman, and Zimmerman was being punched in the face. And he believed at that time he was able to justifiably pull out his firearm and squeeze a couple rounds off, or a round off, and shot Trayvon Martin, in which he died. Now, what the prosecutors try to do is go after murder, when in reality it was more manslaughter, because he inserted himself into a situation that he didn't need to be in, that escalated to the point where he then had to defend himself. He used his firearm, and they try to get him for murder, malice and forethought, when in reality it could have just been manslaughter, and it probably would have stuck because it was negligent homicide. You negligently inserted yourself in a situation that you had no business being in, and it ended up escalating into a point where you did need to defend yourself with a firearm. So when you insert yourself into a situation and you have a firearm, and that situation turns adversarial, hostile, where you need to defend yourself, now we're looking at something else versus someone who's instigated a situation with you, and you are left with no other option than to defend yourself, right? You're minding your own business. You're walking around. You're doing your own thing. And then someone instigates a hostile situation with you. That's different versus you inserting yourself into a situation where the escalation goes up and you need to then use lethal force. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And then I guess you're also dealing with, different, I guess, rules state to state, what people, what the state will consider justifiable. Like I just, read this thing about in California, they want to, some guys trying to push through something to make it so that if someone breaks into your house, you got to try to get the hell out of there before you can fight the guy or take him out. What's going on with that? Do you?
So to start off with, there's something called castle doctrine, and that is the ability to defend your property and defend your domicile, your place of residence, where you live, where you sleep, and be able to defend it to the point where there might end up being lethal force being used, right? And some states have full castle doctrine, and there's limited castle doctrine. California is limited castle doctrine, but also within that, it even breaks down further into something called stand your ground or duty to retreat. And that means that duty to retreat means someone's inside your house, you have to retreat first to get away from them. You have to remove yourself from the situation before you are able to justifiably use deadly force. Surprisingly enough, California is a stand your ground state. And what that bill means is it's only been introduced. It doesn't mean it's been passed. It means it has to go through a whole bunch of stuff. What they're trying to put a kibosh on it right now, because it means that what they're trying to say is that defending yourself inside your home, they're trying to say, is not grounds for lethal force. And which is completely BS, because in California, obviously, because of the political demographic that is the majority, and especially that is in the leadership position that it is right now for that political demographic, they tend to lean less favorably towards Second Amendment and firearms. It's been proven within a lot of bills that that they've passed. So what that means, and I saw the guy just getting absolutely destroyed on social media, and he actually had said, he's like, hey, we're gonna change the wording a little bit, but it has a lot to go through still. But a lot of people are upset about that, because why shouldn't I be able to use lethal force? It's not that we want to use lethal force. Right. We just want to have it as an option to guarantee our sovereignty, our dignity, and our life inside our home. Now, limited castle doctrine and castle doctrine, the difference is like, say, some states where someone enters your property, you can just shoot them. You can just use lethal force. They're not presenting a threat. They're just trespassing. And you can be like, yeah, boom, and I can't say I agree with that, right? Like, I don't want to take a life. Taking a life isn't something, because even if you are civilly justified, even if you are legally justified, and then you survive the civil, which people can do, like a family of somebody can then sue you for wrongful death. Even if you survive that, years from then, you're either going to be drinking or waking up in the middle of the night asking yourself, second question you have, did I really need to take someone's life because they were just standing in my property, right? So you can yell and hey, get off my property, whatever. But California, and this is a class I went through recently to get my CCW for my county, because when you leave one county, you have to get CCW in the other, a new one, restart the process, and I go back through a class again, which is a pain in the butt. But hey, it's always good too, because then I get refreshed with new information, new laws, and new things being passed, or information being passed, right? And so California's limited castle doctrine, which means that while someone's in your yard, you just can't shoot them. They actually have to be a legitimate threat to you. So if he's just standing there, just like whatever, naked, scratching his butthole, there's nothing that you can do. You tell him, get off, push him away, whatever it is, get off my property, call the police and stuff like that. But they actually have to have an articulatable threat to you, like, hey, I'm going to kill you, or have a weapon in their hand, or be charging at you before you can then engage with some sort of self-defense, whether you're using, a bat or a stick or a sword or a knife or your firearm. They have to actually be a legit threat. And the other thing too is you actually have to be like, say you're standing and you're barbecuing and someone enters your property and says, I'm going to effing kill you. And you're like, whoa, no, you're not, and then you engage. That's more justifiable than, say, you're inside your house and someone's outside your house threatening you. Well, now you're entering that situation. So if you were inside your house and someone's standing outside yelling and screaming and threatening you or holding a gun, you going outside to engage with them, now you're in a situation. Now you you're inserting yourself into a situation where you might have to use deadly force versus staying inside. Now, if you stay inside and they kick down the door and say, I'm going to kill you, that's a whole different thing. right? So it really comes down, and there's a lot of variables in California, but it basically comes down to is, can you articulate that they were creating a credible threat to your body and to your life or to your family or to somebody else? And then did you insert yourself in a situation where if you hadn't, deadly force hadn't been necessary?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I think no, that is good to know, and
especially for you in New Jersey, because you guys.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
surprised you even have a CCW in New Jersey, and people say the same thing in Cali. You have a CCW in California? Like,
yeah. Yeah. Apparently, when I got it, they had sort of relaxed a lot of the. I don't even know. It relaxed the rules around it, but I mean, it did take a while, and while I'm going through it. But one of the things that was interesting, and I'm trying to put together like a stand-up bit about it, is when just to get the firearm, you need references, right? So you need, I think it was 3 references, and then to carry, you need 4 references, and in addition to that, you need to make your health records available. So if you've ever, been put into a mental institute or something like that, they need to find out. And what I kind of figured was, with all the crazy shit going on in the world, the very fact that I want to own a gun is proof that I'm sane, like I'm the most sane person around because of all the crazy shit that's going on. It's like, if you don't want a gun in this world, you're out of your fucking mind. But yeah, I mean, I think overall the process was, it took a while, but also, yeah, in a way it kind of, for me, again, like starting from a place of, kind of being scared of guns, and, it gave me time to kind of sit with the reality that I was going to be, a gun owner, and I was going to be, this is a really serious thing. The first time, so this is so funny. Like the first time I carried, right, I didn't even carry my gun. I just carried the holster. I had that like in my clothes, just getting used to that. And then a few days later, I advanced to, okay, I had my gun holstered. Then I had the magazine in one pocket, and then I had the bullets in another pocket. So completely useless human being there, but I needed like those baby steps before, before I'm carrying, with one in the chamber and all that. But yeah, I think for me, like one of the things that's kind of annoying is just, how it varies state to state. Like I would very much like to just be able to, go across the border into, any of the states, and not have to worry about it. And I don't know, I'm wondering, do you think like with the Trump administration, we'll see something like a national constitutional carry going forward? What do you think?
I don't think we'll see a constitutional carry, but I think we're more there's a higher chance of seeing a national reciprocity. So when you carry, there are states that reciprocate your CCW. So some states will say, "Oh, you got a New Jersey CCW? Cool, yeah, you can carry here." And it's also, might vary because you're a resident, non-resident. Each state has their own laws. Like, yeah, you can carry, but here's the exceptions, right? Like California reciprocates with nobody. No, like you can't walk into Cal unless you have which is called an HR 218, which is the LEOSA concealed carry permit, which you get as as either an active duty police officer or a police officer who's, I think you have to have been 10 years as a police officer, and they give you the credentials and permit to carry in all 50 states. But even some of those states require certain classes or certain certifications before you can carry in that state. But police officers, for the most part, can carry in all 50 states. And so as you go across other state lines and stuff like that, obviously you need to pay attention to those laws. There's an app, it's a USCCA app that you can actually download. And I'm not promoting USCCA at the point, but it's a helpful tool, and it's actually a great organization. They also provide you insurance, which is something you should probably consider. If you can still carry your firearm, having insurance. And what they do is there's, I think it's called Law Shield, and USCCA does this, where you're literally providing insurance like you would car insurance. So if you do engage in deadly force, lethal force, they provide you a lawyer. And you just pay like $25-$30 a month. There's different levels. You got gold, platinum, silver, all that stuff. And basically what it is you call them up, let's say, and they give you instructions. Like if you do engage in deadly force, either in your home or out on the street with your CCW, you can call them up before you talk to the police, and they will provide you a lawyer, and they will cover your lawyer fees, your court fees, your costs. And I think now they're actually covering your civil fees as well. I mean, civil up to a certain amount if you get ruled not in favor for your civil trial as well. So having that insurance, I think, is important, especially if you do live in an area where you feel more justified in using and having your CCW than certain other areas, right? If you live in a rural town, whatever it is, what it is. But if you live in a highly populated urban environment where there's a high crime rate, there might be a higher chance of you using your CCW. And I think it's a good idea. I carry the insurance myself because at the end of the day, while it's nice to have that CCW to protect you and your family, you're going to go through. It's not just, oh, you justified and that's it, you're good. No, the police are going to handcuff you. They're going to bring you to a room. They're going to interview you. They're going to pressure you, especially if it's a DA that's going to go up for election this year or something like that. If it's a DA of a political persuasion that tends to not favor that side of politics, the firearms politics, and they're looking for a win, you're going to want that insurance. You're going to want that ability to protect yourself, because you're not just protecting yourself, you're protecting your family. And if you're the sole income provider, the breadwinner, you're not doing much breadwinning if you're constantly talking with lawyers and sitting in courtrooms and or being temporarily locked up. Then what? Right. So it's good to have that insurance. And that's also a reason why no one should be so eager to ever use their firearm. In fact, people that CCW should have the mentality is, I never, ever, 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 ever want to have to use this. I will try and use every method and means possible to avoid any and all situations which I might have to use my firearm for my self-defense. If you have a lot of ego, if you have too much pride, if you are a highly emotionally compromised person where every day you wake up, you're in a bad fucking mood, or you're always looking at people with the eye of suspicion, you probably should not be carrying, because you're going to be emotionally, intellectually, and rationally compromised. And that you just cannot afford. And our society can't afford irrational and mentally unstable people from walking around with a firearm.
Yeah, no, it's serious stuff, and a lot of thought, should go into it, and I think also one of the things that I've been just like noticing is just how at least recently it seems like how people are so open about like calls to violence, like it's a joke, and kind of like going back to the assassination attempt on Trump, I guess the first one, like the amount of the glee that people, that certain critics of Trump had,
people who are inherently anti-2A were all of a sudden okay with the firearm being used.
Yeah, and wishing, oh, if it was just an inch closer, he'd be done. And I was just like, my God, like the bullet we all dodged from, because, had the former president of the United States and, Republican nominee for the presidency, had he been murdered, like, holy shit, the country would have been thrown into something really fucking violent. And I think a lot of the people, the people who are least ready for violence, who are calling for violence, would, have a rude awakening. And look, I know, knowing you and other fans that I've met and friends of mine who are like military, who are actually fucking veterans, who actually know what war looks like. The idea that it would be like, some kind of, I don't know, walk in the park revolution, like, cool, it won't be that. It wouldn't be that at all. And I'm really happy that we I don't think we're there, but just the way that people are talking about violence and, pull out the guillotines and kill billionaires and stuff like that. It's like, man, I really don't like that rhetoric at all.
It's not a fun rhetoric. And people don't realize that, they think of Civil War and they have in their mind the North versus South, and they think that's going to be along the lines. They don't realize when people talk about being a civil war, it isn't that you're going to be marching down the street, or driving to a certain location when there's a battlefield. It's your neighbors. It's your friends. It's people that you love have different political views and opinions. If there's a civil war where there's a violent engagement with firearms and weapons and things like that, it's not going to be fought on some foreign battlefield. It's going to be fought in your neighborhood because your neighbors are different thinkers. They're different political persuasion. So when they call about a civil war, they don't realize that it's not a North versus South. It's not a split between the United States. It is going to be an all-out urban mass casualty of your neighbors and people who you've helped and who, if there wasn't for social media, you would never know their political opinions, because back in the day, most people just didn't talk about it. They were like, hey, who'd you vote for? Not your fucking business, John. Anyway, you want a beer? You want to have a cookout? Whatever it is. Yeah. So when people talk about the Civil War, they just really don't understand completely what that entails, what that means. And it's up close and personal. And I don't think people have really a handle, the mental faculty it takes to engage with violence at an up close level. Civil War, even then people were a little bit more resilient. They've been more exposed to harshness of human realities.
They've gone without food. Like people, during during the Civil War. I mean, there were times where the people were farmers and had to grow their own food and knew what going hungry was like.
Yeah, people talk about lose their shit when their Starbucks order gets fucked up because it's not soy milk and it was whole milk. I think that they're going to engage in a civil war with other people. It's like how much adversity is like everything is trauma nowadays. I was traumatized by this. It's like if you're traumatized by something very minimal, do you really think you're going to engage in all out kinetic violence with somebody? Right. And I think the call for violence, whether you're left or right, is inappropriate, except when it comes to pedophiles.
Sure.
You can call for violence, and I think we can all agree on that. Yeah. But that being said, when it comes out for when it comes to, I don't care what side you're on, you don't cheer on the violence of somebody else, whether it's Biden or whether it's Trump, whether it's Harris, whether it's somebody else. They're still our fellow Americans. They are still, and that's what I think people forget is that liberals are our fellow countrymen. Democrats are our fellow countrymen, and we need to treat them with the same compassion we treat others. We may disagree. We may not like the things that we say. And we have to remember that we all share in this thing we call the human condition, for which there is no cure. And Marcus Aurelius says that we human beings are born for one another. Either correct them or, correct them gently, or learn to bear them, right? And look, I have my disagreements with liberals. I admittedly am a right-leaning centrist. I call myself a centrist, and I'm right-leaning, of course. I don't call myself a libertarian. I don't call myself a liberal. I don't call myself a conservative, though I lean conservative, obviously, but I like to look at all facets of the human condition, whether it's politics or human behavior. And if you look at politics and the human minds, you can begin to understand where it comes from. Liberals tend to be more emotionally driven, limbic responsive type people. And you understand, it's like, well, the limbic system is responsible for emotions, and liberals, you have to respect their compassion. You have to respect their desire to want certain things that I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. I get that. We all want people to live in harmony and peace and stuff like that. But the way sometimes they express that desire for morality just tends to sometimes be hypocritical. And the same thing with conservatives. Conservatives try to use religion as their standard of morality. And that's not always logical nor feasible, because religion has a different standard of morality. And so if we look at whether it's the left using their personal feelings and emotions as a standard for morality, which doesn't work. Like, I feel this way, and if you don't, you're a bad person. No, that's not how that works. You feeling a certain way is on you. You can't logically expect other people to prioritize your feelings as morality. And the same thing with the right. You can't use Christianity or Islam or Buddha, all these different religions, for a standard of morality. You have to try and look at both sides and go, hey, look, I love your compassion, I love your empathy, I think that's a great quality, though I think it's a little too much. I think it's a little too much driven in you. And look, I love your logic and your reason, but it's a bit detached from certain things. And we can take the goodness in both and try and create something amazing. But I don't think it's going to happen, because everyone wants to be right and everyone else is fucking wrong.
Yeah. Well, when it comes to, your job in personal security, I would imagine that, after the, assassination of the CEO from the healthcare CEO by, that guy, Luigi, I would imagine that, people are on high alert, especially like anybody who's, a CEO or an executive, or, somebody with a lot of wealth and all that. And have things changed? Like, have you noticed that?
There has been an increasing demand among CEOs for protection or for residential security. Residential security is still executive protection. It's just that you're sitting in front of their house, or there's a created command post, you're doing patrols on the property, things like that. But you're still, sometimes you have uniformed residential security. Sometimes you just have plainclothes residential security. Depends on the high level of clients. Sometimes clients don't want a dude in uniform standing out in front of the house. Sometimes they just want a dude sitting in their car in plain clothes and get out every once in a while and check, look around, and keep some vigilance. But there is an increasing demand for CEOs. Some are moving from just having a residential security detail to a close protection detail, which means that you have a driver, you have an agent with you, you have someone that walks with you and goes everywhere with you, or walks behind you a little bit, or whatever it is. And so there's been an increasing demand of it, because there was an increased demand by specific individuals with certain ideologies calling for the harm of pharmaceutical and healthcare type CEOs and executives. And oftentimes what happens too is even it's not always an executive that calls for protection. It sometimes is the board or investors, especially if you have a publicly traded company. The CEO is the main asset of the board and the investors. And so if your CEO is killed or harmed, that's a massive loss to a company. And so oftentimes investors and board members will vote or demand that the key executives in a company have a protection detail with them 24/7 or specific times. So sometimes it's not the CEOs. And a lot of CEOs, believe it or not, don't feel that they should have a protection detail, and they don't think they're important enough. But it's not that you're not important enough. You just don't know which even disgruntled investors might call for it's like, I lost all this money, and you're issuing out threats. So yeah, there has been an increased demand, but as that began to dwindle down, then they go, all right, I'm good. They're not demanding that anymore. So sometimes even just with societal hot topics, the demand can increase, can decrease. It really depends.
Yeah. Yeah. And you just, you just don't know. I mean, when we were talking, about, kind of differences between, liberals and conservatives and all that. I mean, if there's like one, kind of line in the sand that I've drawn, it's like, there's me, and then there's the side that was cheering on the murder of an innocent man. And I'm like, we're not going to be able to come together and be friends. Like for me, it was just a clear cut case of just immorality there, and especially watching like politicians kind of say it was wrong, but I understand. And it's like it's like you fucking scumbags. It's like it's like let's not even talk about the fact that the reason why businesses or corporations are able to operate they are for the good and the bad of it is because of the legislation that you fuckers pass. So it's like here they are trying to don't look at me. I'm just a politician. Don't look at the law that I helped write. No, go look at this guy, this evil CEO. And yeah, it's just seeing that it was just so revolting.
Well, first of all, shooting someone in the back is cowardice. I don't know why anyone would cheer that on. This guy, I've forgotten much of it. The ADHD thing, you'll get so into something and then all of a sudden something else like, ooh, shiny object, and you do a control, delete that, dump all the information that you've had. But I don't think anyone deserves to be, murdered or killed, especially when they haven't committed a crime or they haven't done anything to somebody. I mean, they might try and say, well, ancillarily, they've done this, this, and this, and this has hurt other people. And look, I get the ire of pharmaceutical companies. I get the ire of big pharma. I get the ire of a lot of these executives and stuff like that. I get it, but I would never call for the murder or the harming of any of them, especially considering the fact that it's my job to protect them. And in my, and when I protect other people, I have no opinions. I'm a stem cell. My job is that this is a person and they are worthy of my protection and my skills to keep them alive. That's the nature of the game. Is your job, regardless. I've protected politicians I don't agree with. I've protected people I don't agree with. But when I'm protecting them, my politics are out the window. My personal feelings, my biases are gone. This is a human being with a heart in their chest, air in their lungs, and a thought in their brain. And they have a family. They have kids. They have people relying on them. They are given life. They have life, and they deserve to enjoy their life. And so my job is to protect them. And so unless they do something that is illegal or criminal, then they are allowed due process. And this guy was not allowed due process. It was an emotional reaction of a personal hate or vendetta, and they enacted without logic and reason and took someone's life. Nothing about that is to be celebrated, regardless of your personal feelings, regardless of what's happened. And look, if someone hurt my wife and daughter, right? Like actually hurt them, like no shit. You best better believe bad things are going to happen to that person because they actually inflicted legitimate harm, physical harm personally. But because you don't like somebody because they run a company or how they run a company that you disagree with, that's never a reason to engage in killing somebody, especially from behind. Or cowardice. It's just, I disagree with it. I disagree with the people doing it. I don't believe cheering on that kind of like, if you want due process, I get it. And you should call for due process of somebody that you don't like. Investigation, sure. But in cheering on the murder and killing of somebody that hasn't conducted anything criminally and hasn't been afforded due process, I just don't.
And when it comes to due process, I mean, the murderer is getting it. He's getting due process. He's getting his day in court. So much so where I think he's pleading not guilty. And it's like, oh, you can't do that, man. You can't commit this, heinous act, get all this public accolades, all these public accolades for it. You have chicks showing up at your fucking court, at your court case, talking about how, they want you to, give them a baby and all that, and then plead not guilty. I don't think that's right.
It also goes to show you the interesting nature of humans, right? I don't know if you've ever seen this, use an example. I've seen this page called Mug Shorties, and it's where these attractive females are mug shots, and guys are like, I could fix her. Oh, yeah, I wouldn't mind, right? And that's because, and you look at these girls looking at this Luigi guy, this is a handsome guy, and all these girls are like, oh my God, he's like so attractive, and they're ingratiating him. It's the same thing. It's human nature. If someone's attractive enough, you can get past their faults. But because ideologically he also aligns with certain people that are against the big pharmaceutical companies, which is ironic because the same people that are cheering this on are the same people that 4 years ago
get the shot
were very supportive of big pharma, very supportive of these pharmaceutical companies and healthcare companies pushing an injection and then shaming others who did not. So the same, it's a weird thing. It's this I don't know how to describe it, but it's certainly a curious reaction in human nature.
Yeah. Amen. Well, Brady, I'm so happy that we got to talk, man. I didn't know where the conversation was going to go, but I'm so happy that you brought it here. So
I appreciate you having me. Yeah.
Yeah. And where can people find your stuff? Where do you, if somebody wants to hire you for protection, do you have a website? How does that work?
Well, they can contact me, but I have to refer them to a security firm because the way the laws are in California, I can't just go get hired personally, but they can contact me and I can talk to a security firm and they can arrange a contract and then I can be their protection agent. But if you really want to find me, I'm on Instagram. That's where I just spend a lot of my time and content, get my content out. So it's under grayman.project, GRAYMAN.project. And it's there I talk more about stoicism, mental resilience, self-reliance, and social independence. So I go into a lot of just trying to teach people how to be more rational, use philosophy to combat their limbic response to external stimulus and all that good, fun, nerdy stuff.
Cool. Well, I could use some of that.